I would like to bring up the saltwater fish at some point.
Yeah, why don't you do that whilst I'm bringing in the next caller?
Well, and I've kept reef aquariums for a long time, and there's something here that has to happen. There has to be a precise salinity, right? That is the percentage of the ocean that's composed of salt and whatnot. And if it's changed, many things change, like the toxicity to ammonia drastically changes. And with all of these animals dying, of course, the ocean would be riddled with ammonia, which is absolutely toxic to fish. So you change the salinity, you change the pH, you change the temperature, you change the gas composition. I mean, just any of these small, tiny... Changing the salinity causes a massive ripple effect, which basically means that organisms can't survive. If your salinity in your aquarium is off just a tad, game over. The fish simply can't adapt to it, especially in a quick sort of time. So explain to me how saltwater fish lived if the flood was freshwater. I mean, how can you have freshwater?
Aliens.
No, how can you have fresh and saltwater fish living, right? Because if the flood was all freshwater, it would have lowered the salinity in the oceans to the point where the saltwater fish would die. If the flood was saltwater, then all the freshwater fish would die. There is no in between. And not only that, but you've got things like coral reefs, which are thousands of years old. And coral are actually much more sensitive to changes in salinity and changes in pH and alkalinity than fish are. So how can you have all of this alive? I mean, how can the corals, the saltwater fish, and the freshwater fish all survive this? It simply can't. One of them would have to be wiped out.
I'm sorry, we've got the next caller in already. I don't want to go on to him yet. Andy, can I just ask you, until I introduce you, could you just mute your microphone for me, please, because we can hear you. John, can I just raise another question? One of the arguments that's used to explain how you could get all the animals onto the ark is that Noah only took 2 of each kind. So he only took 2 dog kind things and 2 cat kind things. Now, this seems to me to demand an extraordinary rate of evolution if 2 dog-type things have produced all the dogs that we now see.
Yeah, that's the other thing. And there's physically, okay, it depends on how you define kind. There are 2 possibilities. First possibility is that kind is species, and evolution is false, all right? They brought 2 dogs, 2 big cats, 2 little cats, 2 lions, 2 tigers, 2 ligers, all of that. But then the problem is, you run out of space. Over half of the species in the world, over 400,000, are beetles. So God had 400,000 pairs of beetles on the ark. And that's, if you're taking the view of that being, kind being species. Well, then the problem is that you run out of space. Okay? If you take the other view and you say, oh, well, kind is, there was a cat kind and a dog kind. Well, then the space problem is less so. I mean, it still exists, but it's not as bad. But then you're suggesting to me that you get lions and tigers and house cats within 4,000 years, evolving? That's simply that you believe in super evolution, not just evolution.
It's worse than that, because the basis of all cats and the basis of all dog, when you look at the very root of their kind, they're the same frickin' animal.
Exactly. So you don't just believe in evolution, you believe in super evolution. And yes, to answer some people's comments, yes, there are brackish water fish. Certain fish can survive in a variety of salinities. Actually, the green spot and figure 8 pufferfish are good examples. They can be in completely fresh or completely salt. But those are the exception to the rule, not the rule. And if that were to be the valid argument as to how they survive, we would expect all fish today to be able to do that because their environment would be such that it would be favoring those with that trait. But we clearly don't see that.
Yeah, well, there's another thing, too, is like when you look at the hydrological sorting argument, if you guys are familiar with a scarab necklace, this is a trilobite. This is a trilobite. Now, why is it that all the trilobites are at the bottom? I mean, they all died out long before the dinosaurs. Then we have the big, heavy dinosaurs that are all on top of the trilobites. And then we have all the little fluffy bunny rabbit kind of things, and they're on top of the dinosaurs. Why is that? How does this hydrological sorting not work when it comes to things like this?
But and their answer to that is, yeah, well, we found seashells on top of mountains. So that just proves what was going on. Like, that's right, because the mountains were just always there. They don't move or anything. Mountains don't just pop up. I mean, tectonics is from the devil.
The one you're talking about is the Himalayas. And the Himalayas, we can actually chart the rise continuing today. from a reaction of tectonics from when the Indian subcontinent crashed into Asia, and those mountains are still on the rise, miserably so. And we know that if the continent crashed in, this had to be a seabed. So what is now the top of the mountain was at one point the bottom of the sea. And it's not that they can't understand this. It is
that they ignore it.
They won't understand this.
And something interesting, a little bit, a tidbit of trivia, if my recollection is correct. I mean, isn't the rise of the Himalayas, wasn't that one of the things that was in part responsible for the last ice age, in the sense of the rise of the Himalayas and the calcium carbonate sucked a lot of the CO2 out of the atmosphere? Is one of the ideas that's
I wish I could answer that question.
Yeah,
I wish we could
something to look into.
I wish we could get Potholer 54 on the show, because I bet you he could.